Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's Movie Blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you are doing well. Today we're going to be looking through another awesome article by Matthew Kadish. If you've never read his work before, I highly recommend it. I'm going to post the link to this article in the description below. Please give him some love on Twitter, and also please actually read his article on his site and share it with everybody because he really does such great research. He does a lot of time. He does not just put things out there very quickly. He instead takes his time, mulls things over, and tries to be as fair as possible when going through what he describes as storycraft, which is to say that these issues that a lot of us have with The Last Jedi is not merely from a political perspective, but is actually an objective. It comes from an objective perspective, like saying that we can look at objective flaws with the story and say, this is the reason why we have a problem with this film, or these are the reasons why we have problems with certain characters. And so today, we're going to be focusing specifically on the character of Rey. So it's been said several times before that Rey is what's called a Mary Sue. Now, some people say, no, she's not a Mary Sue, and they try to defend it. That's obviously just not the case when you actually break down how her character's actually presented on screen. But then the other thing that you usually hear pretty close to that is, oh, and by saying that you're a sexist. Well, unfortunately, they have no idea what they're talking about, so luckily we have Matthew Kadish here who's going to clear up everything. He's going to explain what a Mary Sue actually is, the history behind it, and also whether or not it's sexist or not, and ending with whether or not Rey fits the narrative, or rather fits the description of a Mary Sue. So let's start off. Mary Sues are typically purposely lacking in character development in order to remain as undefined and generalized as possible. The reason for this is so that large numbers of a story's audience are able to fill in the characterization gaps by inserting their own personal character traits in the Mary Sue, thus fulfilling this self-insertion purpose of the character. And it is for this reason why Mary Sues can be so incredibly popular among audiences, because audiences feel as though they themselves are the flawless star of the story they are experiencing. This can also be why some people are so vehement in their defense of a Mary Sue character, because they essentially feel as though they are defending themselves from criticism that is actually aimed just at the character and not them as an individual. Already in this one paragraph alone, we have so much packed into it and just so much truth. So first off, it talks about, well, what a Mary Sue actually is. And so it's a character. First off, it's a very generalized character. There really isn't a whole lot of backstory. A lot of things are left up to interpretation, and that's done on purpose for several different reasons. The main one being that it allows for audiences to engage with that character, to invest in that character, to like and enjoy that character, because they are able to put themselves into the character's shoes. So Rey from Star Wars, Rey from Star Wars, I was going to say Star Wars, a Star Wars story. Rey from Star Wars, especially in The Force Awakens and continuing on in The Last Jedi, has been that kind of a character where there really isn't a whole lot of depth to her character, not quite yet at least, and so therefore it allows for audiences to be fond of her, to like her character a lot. But also too, as he says, it also makes a lot of sense as to why so many people get so angry when you call her a Mary Sue, when you call out the fact that she really is this generalized, bland character who has these powers that no one can really explain. So he's already making the point of what he's going to continue to talk about as the article goes on, and it's already extremely insightful. So let's continue on. The negative connotation that stems from this wish fulfillment implication is that a Mary Sue becomes so perfect that the character becomes too lacking in realism or development to actually be interesting. Due to a Mary Sue extreme competence and masterful talents, she not only has no room to improve, but any obstacle that she encounters offers no challenge for her to overcome. Her lack of struggle, lack of transformation, lack of self-doubt, and lack of conflict robs the audience of any feeling of tension or drama because they inherently know that the Mary Sue will always prevail whether she deserves it or not. So again, that's just going on further to explain why the Mary Sue is often said to be a bad character development. And the reason why is because, as he says very clearly there, that it takes away any real sense of realism. No stakes are really brought to the character. It's the same reason why when we go into a Star Wars film, when I go into episode 9, yes, I'm still going to see it. I'm going to go pay for a ticket to another film, but I'm still going to see it nonetheless because I don't ever want to talk about something that I have not myself either read or watched on the big screen, and so that's the reason why I'm still going to see it. But I can tell you right now that most likely what's going to happen is that everything that happens to her is going to be predictable. Everything is just going to be very fleshed out, and there really aren't going to be any stakes. If she's ever at any point in peril, if she's ever at any point in danger, all I'm going to think is, well, no, they've already set up her character as always being able to get out of these situations pretty much by herself, so why should I have any stakes or be concerned for the character? That's why really strong characters, good characters, are the ones that you can honestly have no idea whether or not they will succeed or not. Now, keep this in mind. Just because someone is a Mary Sue, just because Rey is a Mary Sue, and just because she fulfills all these different descriptors, that does not mean that you cannot still like her. And that's oftentimes where we see some discrepancy. So once again, Matthew's on point. But the real issue when it comes to Mary Sue characters, particularly in post-feminist cinema, is that they are often conflated with the concept of strong female characters. In this instance, writers who wish to espouse a message of female empowerment conflate writing realistic and sympathetic characters with idealized characters in an attempt to extol the virtues of being a woman, thus playing against the traditional female stereotypes found in older narrative. However, in making a female character a Mary Sue, they sacrifice creating a strong female character in exchange for an unrealistic, perfect female character. So this is a very important point, because oftentimes people, one of the first things that they say is that, oh, you're just being critical of Rey because she's a female. No, it's because instead of making a strong female character, and if you want some evidence as to what makes a strong female character, just look to Ripley from Alien. Just look to Sarah Connor in the Terminator franchise. We have had strong female characters, and guess what? Not all of them, in fact, a lot of them have not been written by women themselves, because you know what? A good character can be written no matter who the person is. A good, strong character is a good, strong character who's created by a good writer. The problem with a Mary Sue is that instead of there being a strong female character or even a strong male character, that does not mean when you have that, basically you take away any sense of stakes for that character, and therefore it's very easy to lose interest. That's why when you ask most people, I would say, who've seen Last Jedi or even The Force Awakens, you would say, are there really any stakes for Rey at this point? Especially after The Last Jedi, when we found out her parents were nothing, etc. And I mean, obviously that could all be a lie, but still, like, at this point, most people would say, nah, I'm not really that interested. She's kind of a bland character. Why? Because they made her as a Mary Sue. That's the reason why. They made her as a Mary Sue, and so therefore she's kind of lost any sense of interest, and most people just don't really care about it. And the reason why is because, as he says, in this post-feminist era, where now everything is about going beyond gender roles, the problem is that these writers, instead of creating an actual strong female independent character, instead try to make an uber female character that goes beyond every single constraint, not just for a female, but for men and female, dating back to the beginning of cinema. That obviously is going to create a problem, because a perfect female character versus a strong female character, they are not the same. A common defense against the Mary Sue accusation is that audiences cannot handle the notion of a strong, competent, independent female character. The basis of this defense is that the critics of a so-called Mary Sue are simply prejudiced against females and inherently reject characters based on a deeply ingrained bias against women. In essence, those who make this argument of sexism are dismissing any criticism of a character based solely on that character's gender. So obviously, if I call someone a Mary Sue, or if I'm critical of Rey's character, or if I'm critical of any character who just so happens to be female, that automatically makes me a sexist. That automatically means that either I'm overtly being sexist, or there's some deep, hidden, inherent sexism within me. The problem is that does not explain why I love Ripley from Alien, or why I love Sarah Connor from Terminator, or why I love so many other strong, well-written female characters throughout the history of film. So the problem is that when they make that argument, it just does not hold up when put to scrutiny. Most people out there, again, are there some probably, a few small people in the world who try and say, like, oh, women shouldn't be on screen in the first place? I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure there's those crazy people out there, but guess what? Most people are not like that. And so when most people, including myself, call Rey a Mary Sue and are critical of Rey being a Mary Sue, it has nothing to do with sexism. It's just purely, she's not, objectively speaking, she is not a well-written character. And again, does that mean that you can't like her? No, I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is that there's really not a whole lot there for me to be invested in, for most people to be invested in her character, because she does fulfill this Mary Sue. All right. However, this begs the question, which is more sexist? I think this is my favorite section. Which is more sexist, hating a character because of that character's gender, or loving that character based entirely on that character's gender? That is probably the biggest question that needs to be asked, especially for these people who call other people sexist, is that, okay, so you're saying that if I hate a character because of the gender of that character, that's sexist. Well, then wouldn't the opposite also have to be true, that if I only love a character because of her gender, wouldn't that also be sexist, because I am still making a judgment? Because again, what is sexism? What is racism? Making judgments on people because of their race and because of their gender. You can even call it prejudice, whatever you want to call it. So at the end of the day, what is the real difference between the two? I know somebody's like, oh, one's a negative and one's a positive, but still, it's a judgment being made on someone's character, on someone in general, because of their gender. And so that's the reason why that just because I don't like a character who happens to be female does not mean that I'm automatically sexist. And in fact, in most situations, the person who's accusing the other person of that is more likely the sexist one, because when it all comes down to it, the person likes the character, or at least the person defends the character because they have this obligation that they feel they have to defend all female characters, whether they're well written or bad. And that is a big problem, because if you defend all female characters, no matter how well written or poorly written they are, that sets a bad precedent, and it also makes your argument and a lot of people who support your argument look bad. It's one thing to go out of your way to defend a strongly written female character against people who are being critical of her for stupid reasons. It's another to just defend a character like Rey and say, oh, she's fantastic, she's amazing, look at all these things she's done, when in reality, no, you can still like her. You can absolutely still like her as a character, but you cannot tell me that she is not a Mary Sue, that she is not just this idealized character that's meant to try and bring all, I guess the direction. Again, that's what Kathleen Kennedy has wanted. All the future is female, the Force is female. So the whole point of it is to say, oh, all women can find representation in Rey. But the problem is when you try to make that perfect female character that can appeal to all people, they end up losing all the interesting parts of them because they become so OP, they become so overpowered that any sense of realism is gone. Though many Mary Sue defenders can argue that sexism is why an audience may reject a female character, it is also the height of irony that the very reason they defend the character is based solely on the fact that they feel that the character's gender puts her above criticism. In both instances, the gender of the character evokes unnatural responses in the opposite extremes of the audience. Rather than seeing the character in question as simply a character that is meant to be analyzed and critiqued, people use the character's gender to justify their inherent prejudice either for or against it. So again, sexism is going both ways. You can't just say, if you judge a character because of her gender, you're a sexist, but I can judge the character. I can say I love the character because she's a female, and that doesn't make me sexist either. It's like, come on. Or being critical, for example, most people wouldn't say that, oh, I'm being critical of this male character because he's a male. Some people, these same people would say, oh, no, that's not sexism because it just doesn't work that way. It's like, no, I'm sorry, you can't have it both ways there. All right, because the label of idealized, and also too, he goes on to say, just after this paragraph, he goes on to say, that's the reason why we have a term called a Gary Stu, because there are several male characters who fit the Mary Sue dynamic. I'm sorry, but like, this is not strictly a female problem. This is no matter what gender you are, no matter what race you are for that matter, anyone can fulfill this Gary Stu, Mary Sue, whatever you want to call it. These are just terms to describe characterizations of characters. That's all that they're used to do. Because the label of an idealized self-insert character can be applied to both male and female characters, the term Mary Sue itself cannot be sexist in nature. No more than any gender pronoun can be considered sexist. Instead, it's a descriptive term associated with a type of gender orientation. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. I feel like so many people just do not understand that. Just because I'm describing a character as a Mary Sue does not mean that I'm saying, oh, because she's a woman, she's weak and she's a poor character. No, it's that she is a poor and weak character. Just like any other male or female character can be a poor and weak character. It's a descriptor. You go on and say the call Mary Sue is a sexist term is tantamount to calling other female descriptive terms such as heroine, mother, girlfriend, wife, queen, princess, or matron sexist simply because they depict different female-centric representations and because the term is not inherently sexist. Its use is therefore not inherently sexist. Thank you very much. And yeah, I'm sure there are some people out there who say, well, all those terms are they're created by the patriarchy and you just don't know because of your white male privilege. You just can't tell. Yeah. Keep on getting that argument to see just how far you'll go in life. All right, beyond that, the negative connotation associated with the term Mary Sue has nothing to do with the character's gender. It's actually meant to refer to the nature of the character, that being one that is idealized to the point of perfection. And because this description can be applied to both male and female characters who fit it, then using the term to criticize a character cannot be deemed sexist in nature. Exactly. One of the biggest mistakes a storyteller can make is confusing the concept of a strong character with that of a perfect character. Strong characters must struggle to overcome challenges and be transformed for the better by doing so. Perfect characters easily overcome any challenges and never have to transform any than they already have. Exactly right. So a perfect character is one who does not have to work, who is just good at the Force, who is just good at everything they do with no training whatsoever. A strong character is one that you like them because they have to work. Great example, great modern example for any wrestling fans out there. It's the difference between Roman Reigns, or even a John Cena and a Daniel Bryan. You have one who was made to look strong, winning every match, overcoming all the odds every single time. And then on the other side, you have Daniel Bryan. Again, that was Roman Reigns, John Cena. And then you have Daniel Bryan, who's a smaller wrestler who has to scratch his way, lose matches, go through challenges, everything's get put in his way, but he struggles through those challenges. The difference is that both characters, both a perfect character, an idealized character, a perfect character, and also a strong character, they might go through the same challenges. The difference is that a strong character will deal with the challenges, will struggle, will suffer through them, while a perfect character will just the challenges, but oh man, but look, I just get by so quickly. Oh, there's a knife that should be here in The Last Jedi, but wait a minute, it just disappears because I'm a Mary Sue. So that's a very good point. A strong character is dynamic, a perfect character is static, and then he goes on to explain like the differences between the two. Again, guys, I'm only going to read kind of like the highlights of this article. Please dive into this article yourself, even more information. So when evaluating a female character, a storyteller should try not to look at the character based on its gender, but rather try to determine if the character is strong regardless of their gender. Notice that we are not debating whether the character should be considered good or bad. Quality is too open to subjective interpretation. Instead, it is better to look at a character critiques in the terms of strong character versus weak character. These can simply be defined as strong character is strongly written, weak character is poorly written. So again, good or bad, those are subjective terms. Whether you think a character is good or bad or not, that is up to your decision. But whether a character is strongly written or well written or poorly written, that is where we go into the realm of objective reality. It's the same reason why I can say I think that The Room is an excellent, perfect film, even though objectively speaking, I know that it's poorly directed, poorly written, and has terrible acting in it. Again, there is a subjective point of view and an objective point of view. The problem is that in today's world, in today's society, there are so many people who throw out these terms of racism and sexism when someone is just trying to say, no, objectively speaking, you are wrong, and you are trying to say that my objectivity is simply subjectivity, or rather is racism and sexism masked as objectivity, when in reality, I'm just, I'm hiding my own subjective racist and sexist inclinations, when in reality, they're just ignoring the fact that we do have a world where there is indeed objective opinion. There is black and white. Among the gray, there is black and white. And that's where we have to understand that there is a subjective reality, especially to film criticism, but there's also an objective one as well. So well written versus poorly written. And that's where Rey comes out to be a poorly written character. And again, I'm not covering all the things that he talks about, but he breaks down why Rey is indeed a poorly written character. And here is a great example too, and this is another one of my favorite parts of the article, and when he talks about Boba Fett. So he says, just because a character is deemed to be weak does not make the character bad necessarily. A character can be weak or poorly written and still be likable, and also can be either a male or female. An example of a weak but likable character everyone can relate to is that of Boba Fett from The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. The character is never properly developed. Yes. So there is a male character who most people still like. Obviously, there's some people who don't, but most people in the Star Wars universe would say that they like Boba Fett, that they liked what the character could have been, but they will also say, I like him, but I'm not going to defend how he was presented in the films because he was never fully fleshed out. So again, you can like a character, just like I love Tommy from The Room, but do I think he's a fleshed out, awesome character? Objectively, no. So again, there can be objective and subjective reality here. When it comes to developing a character, there are 5 aspects that can help define how strong that character will resonate with audiences, and these aspects are character arc, motivation, activity level, struggle, likability. He then goes and breaks down all of those different things. Again, all good stuff, all breaking down why Rey specifically, how Rey fits within all of those different criteria, those 5 aspects, and just how poorly she does. So out of all 5 categories, so this is skipping ahead a bit. So out of all 5 categories that determines a strong character, Rey only succeeds in fulfilling 1. However, the one category she does pass with flying colors also happens to be the most important one, and that is of likability. Even Star Wars fans who may be critical of Rey's perfect image are willing to admit they actually find her somewhat likable. Again, would I say that I hate her character and that I wish her character would never show up on screen? I wouldn't say that. There's some people that might, but I myself recognize that she's a weak character, but I still like her, and that's mostly because of Daisy Ridley, because she is a very likable person. She has a very likable personality, and that shows on the screen. Does that mean that just because I like her as a person or as a character, that she's a good character? No, not at all. But being likable does not make her strong. Thank you, Matthew. By failing 4 out of the 5 criteria, it is in fact safe to say that Rey is actually a weak character by storycraft standards. Again, from an objective standpoint, she is indeed a weak character. And if you want more details on that, go check out his article. Indeed, Rey does not appear to meet all the Indeed, Rey does appear to meet all the criteria of a Mary Sue. She is an idealized woman, a perfect character, and someone who upstages all other characters she is on screen with. She has no character arc, her development remains static due to her being perfect in all disciplines in which she partakes. She has no obstacles that need to be overcome to achieve her goals, and her powers and abilities are simply handed to her by the plot rather than her having to work to attain them. The narrative dictates that Rey be the protagonist of episodes 7 and 8 rather than her actions being the catalyst for driving the narrative forward. And something that Matthew does really well in this article right before this paragraph is he talks about just how being an active personality, being an active character versus being a passive character, where the plot gives you everything versus the character working through the plot to basically gain those things himself, is a huge difference in characters. It's what makes the difference. It's what defines the difference between a weak and a strong character. And so, guys, what are y'all thoughts on this article? I think Matthew Kadish once again hits it out of the park. I just did a highlights version this time. Last time I kind of went through the article and tried to jump through things, but this time, as I was reading it, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to highlight my favorite paragraphs, things that I think I could add things to, and Matthew Kadish has just done an amazing job, so please follow him on medium.com. I'm going to post the link to his article, so if you want to read more, if you want to see his entire breakdown of all of the problems that Rey has in The Last Jedi and also The Force Awakens, it's there. So he goes through again why her character is weak from an objective standpoint through the art of storycraft, and it's fantastic. It's wonderful. I give my total support behind this article. He does a great job, great work, and he's also a really nice guy. He's been shouting me out on Twitter a lot, so I want to give him a huge shout out. Thank you so much for allowing me to use your article once again. It's a great work, and also please click on that link. Guys, if you like this video though, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe if you haven't done so already, and also please share this video as well. Not only share this video, but share the link too. Share this story, share this this article, because I do think it's important, because we have to be able to sit back and understand what is real, what is objective, and what is subjective, because unfortunately we find ourselves on two sides of a ever-growing debate, especially within the Star Wars community, and we're going back and forth, and a lot of times it can tend to delve into a subjective versus subjective opinion. But if we can ground ourselves in reality, if we can ground ourselves in common sense and objective truth, it is a lot harder to lose that argument. Now, of course, are there criticisms to this article? Sure there are. I mean, obviously nothing is perfect, but to say that this is not a strong place to start off from is just to not be truthful. So thank y'all so much for watching. Y'all are amazing. I love you. I'm so sorry for the long video, but there were just too many great things in this article that I just didn't want to skip through. So y'all are amazing. I love every single one of you guys. Have a great day. And as always, God bless.